All right, let's get to the
President-elect Trump. He is blasting Mexico and Canada over their handling of the border and promising to punish them with high tariffs on day one of his administration. He's also vowing to raise tariffs on China. Our senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, is at Mar-a-Lago with the latest.
Good morning, Michael. President-elect Trump is threatening to impose tariffs on America's top 3 trading partners. This would massively disrupt businesses and supply chains. It could also dramatically increase the costs of everything from cars, clothes to oil. This morning, Donald Trump is warning America's neighbors, threatening to implement 25% across-the-board tariffs on Mexico and Canada on day one if both countries, he says, don't crack down on their borders with the U.S. Trump cites a new caravan coming from Mexico with a group of hundreds of migrants, mostly from South and Central America, leaving southern Mexico last week. This Ecuadorian migrant says, "We want to be on the other side before the new president of the United States takes office," as he seems quite harsh on immigrants. The president-elect blames Mexico and Canada, saying his tariffs will remain in effect until such times as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Mexico in particular is America's largest trading partner, with the U.S. buying near $500 billion of Mexican goods.
I love this story so much because it is J.D. Pondom, baby. It's called, he's saying permanent first world genocide. He's saying it's over. It's done. No more treats. And I respect him for it, okay? No more treats. Americans must suffer. You like Cheez-Its? You're going to die, okay? No more Cheez-Its.
Goods like computers, cars, and electrical equipment. Tariffs could greatly impact U.S. industries, with some experts warning that Americans could face higher prices on gas, cars, and food, just as inflation has been.
He said it's done, okay? He said Americans are no longer going to get treats. I don't want them to get treats. And also, on top of that the most important industry for Trump supporters is what? Drop shipping and Trump merchandise. He wants to gut this industry, okay? He wants to destroy these two key sectors. He despises his fan base, okay? Do you have a Trump store? It's over. I'm going to explode it. He said no more drop shipping and no more Trump merchandise.
Receding. Mexican authorities have broken up past caravans, with many more disbanding on their own. But Trump's incoming.
Oh yeah, by the way, this is the other thing I called. A lot of people were wondering, like, Hasan, why the fuck is Trump doing this trade tariff shit? And I told you it's going to be to win favors. That's it. It's that, and also to maybe in the future gut what remains of the income tax.
Border czar Tom Homan is now warning those migrants they will soon face harsher policies like family separation.
We got to enforce immigration law, or we're never going to fix the border, and it leads to a big national security vulnerability to this nation.
Later today, Homan will meet with Texas's Republican Governor Greg Abbott as he prepares for his sweeping crackdown. If enacted, these tariffs could violate the terms of the trade agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada.
That he signed, by the way. He didn't have to too, and then now it's saying that.
Canada, which Trump signed into law during his first term. Trump also accused China of sending drugs pouring into our country, threatening an additional 10% tariff on all Chinese products, too. Tariffs are a favorite tool of Trump's.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff, and it's my favorite word.
Trump's comments drawing responses from trade partners. The Chinese embassy saying economic and trade cooperation is essentially mutually beneficial. No one will win in a trade war or a tariff war. And Canada responding, saying they'll continue to discuss these issues with the incoming administration. Trump used tariffs as a negotiating tactic during his first term, so he's reusing that playbook again. But if he actually follows through on his campaign vow for higher tariffs, some economists estimate that could cost the average U.S. household more than $2,600 a year. George?
It could really drive inflation. Okay, Selena, thanks very much.
CNN's Rosa Flores is in Houston for us now. Rosa, how is Mexico responding to what we're hearing from the incoming Trump administration about how they plan to crack down on the border and carry out these mass deportations?
Well, very sternly. As a matter of fact, Mexico's president held a press conference this morning in response to President-elect Donald Trump's threat to impose tariffs on Mexico, actually. But Jim, as you know, all of these things are intermingled. Mexico's president was very firm. She called out President-elect Donald Trump, saying that both Mexico and the United States collaborate on a lot of different levels, including economically. And in other words, she said that she's ready to respond in kind. Let me read to you a portion of that letter that she sent to President-elect Donald Trump. She said, quote, "President Trump, neither threats nor tariffs will solve the issue of migration or drug consumption in the United States. Cooperation and shared understandings are required to face these important challenges. Imposing one tariff would mean another comes in response." I'm going to read that one more time because these are very important words from Mexico's president. Imposing one tariff would mean another comes in response, continuing like this until we put shared companies at risk. Now, the tone of this letter is very important because Mexico's president is not just talking about
my goat. The conservative Reddit claims is a Trump negotiation tactic that is in the Art of the Deal book, and that he's hitting with the highest possible deal for them to squirm and take action, and he will lower the tariffs once they do. Who's gonna take action? Tariffs are not a cost that the Chinese government has to pay. And there are certain raw materials, for example, that companies need. There is a lot of is not either refined here, for a lot of these raw materials are already within the supply chain coming from these countries that you're hitting them with tariffs. And we have no competitive manufacturing industry. What are you supposed to do? We get it from Mexico. What are you supposed to do? Trump is doing degrowth, dude. That's what he's doing. Like, people are still, what's going to end up happening is people are still going to keep, importing this stuff, and then they're going to carry on the cost of the consumer. That's it. So the prices are going to go up because now the production costs have gone up. It's that simple. Like, people understand this when they talk about labor. Oh, when the wages go up, well, then the cost of the cost of production is going to go up. No company is going to eat the profit margins, okay? They're just not going to do that. This is a way for Donald Trump to, I don't think he's going to do like full-blown tariffs. I think he's just going to tariff key sectors and then, and then use that as a mechanism to bring in more alliances from industry leaders to be like, I will tariff your business into the ground unless you play ball. Companies need to be able to eat the upfront costs. Why don't they do that for wage increases rather than putting tariffs on random that then goes in the pockets of the American government so they can not, fix the potholes, and instead give it to Israel? They'll force the companies to eat the profits, eat into their profit margins, and increase wages then.
Tariffs about the economic relationship with the United States, but also the border relationship with the United States, because Mexico has done a lot to help the Biden administration control the migration that is coming into the U.S. southern border, which begs the question about what is happening on the U.S. southern border, given that Governor Greg Abbott and the incoming U.S. border czar, Tom Homan, are on the border today. Here's the reality. The migrant apprehension numbers are extremely low. I talked to a law enforcement source, Jim, who says that on Sunday, migrant apprehensions were about 1,500. If you compare that to December of 2023, when 10,000 people were crossing the border per day, that just gives you a sense of the dramatic change. The reality is, and I've talked to both people on the ground, agents, and also advocates who work on the border, they say it is very quiet right now, very low, despite what you're hearing from Governor Greg Abbott and the incoming border czar, Tom Homan. Back to you.
All right, Rosa Flores, important context. Thank you very much.
What do Americans want in terms of what are their top priorities for Trump? This is according to CBS News YouGov poll that came out. Their highest priority is lower prices. 79% of Americans want lower prices. Just 26% say put tariffs on imports. So his strategy here can undercut what voters want him to do.
Sure, but this, threatening tariffs.
Dear President-elect Donald Trump, I'm writing to you regarding your statement on Monday, November 25th, concerning migration, fentanyl trafficking, and tariffs. You may not be aware that Mexico has developed a comprehensive policy to assist migrants from different parts of the world who would cross our territory en route to the southern border of the United States. As a result, and according to the data from your country's Customs and Border Protection, encounters at the Mexico-United States borders have decreased 75% between December 2023 and November 2024. Moreover, half of those who arrive do so through a legally scheduled appointment under the United States CBP-1 program. For these reasons, migrant caravans no longer arrive at the border. Even so, it is clear that we must work together to create a new labor mobility model that is necessary for your country, as well as address the root causes that compel families to leave their homes out of necessity. If even a small percentage of what the United States allocates to war were instead dedicated to building peace and fostering development, it would address the underlying causes of human mobility. Based on another note, and for humanitarian reasons, Mexico has consistently expressed its willingness to help prevent the fentanyl epidemic in the United States from continuing. This is, after all, a public health consumption problem within your society. Yeah, she's saying, like, you Americans are fat fentanyl addicts, and it's not our fault. You have created the market for fentanyl. So far this year, Mexican armed forces and prosecutors have seized tons of various types of drugs, 10,000 firearms, and detained 15,000 individuals for violence related to drug trafficking. Furthermore, the Mexican Congress is in the process of approving a constitutional reform to classify the production, distribution, and commercialization of fentanyl and other synthetic drugs that are illegally entering Canada, the United States, and Mexico from Asian countries. This underscores the urgent need for international collaboration. You must also be aware of the illegal trafficking of firearms into my country from the United States. Again, also correct. It's also, ironically enough, Americans that traffic the fentanyl and chemical compounds necessary for fentanyl through regular points of entry for an American market. And then Americans also trade guns for said fentanyl and chemical compounds. So the drug trade is directly vibrant as a consequence of ridiculous American policies. America is so gun crazy that they also have similar problems with Canada too. 70% of the illegal weapons seized from criminals in Mexico come from your country. We do not produce these weapons, nor do we consume synthetic drugs. Tragically, it is in our country that lives are lost to the violence resulting from meeting the drug demand in yours. President Trump, migration and drug consumption in the United States cannot be addressed through threats or tariffs. What is needed is cooperation and mutual understanding to tackle these significant challenges. For every tariff, there will be a response in kind until we put at risk our shared enterprises. Yes, shared. For instance, among Mexico's main exporters of the United States are General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford Motor Company, which arrived in Mexico 80 years ago. Why impose a tariff that would jeopardize them? Such a measure would be unacceptable and would lead to inflation and job losses in both the United States and Mexico. I am convinced that North America's economic strength lies in maintaining our trade partnership. This allows us to remain competitive amongst other economic blocs. For this reason, I believe that the dialogue is the best path to understanding, peace, and prosperity for our nations. I hope our teams can meet soon to continue building joint resolutions. So that part is also correct. And not only is that part correct, also one of the funniest things that happened in this process, Canada also was like, what the hell's going on? Except their response was, why the f would you ever say we're Mexican? To compare the U.S. to Mexico is the most insulting thing I've ever heard from Canada's closest ally. Premier Ford tells reporters at Queen's Park, says Canada will have to retaliate if tariffs go through. We have to tighten up our borders on both sides, Ford says, adding there are illegals entering Canada from the U.S. too. This is no way to treat your closest ally, but says there's a problem at the border that needs to be addressed. Ford says Ontario is preparing a strong commercial in the U.S. that promotes Canada's relationship with the U.S., calls tariffs a shock, but says problems need to be addressed. USA, we're going to crush your economy. Canada, did you just call me a Mexican? That's amazing. Here's the average American and their understanding of tariffs.
Do these liberals not understand that this is the point? Like, this is the goal. Walmart CFO signals that price hikes may be coming because of Donald Trump's tariffs. Yeah, we fully expect price hikes on foreign products.
You idiot. 45% of all trade is conducted with China, Mexico, and Canada. Okay? 45. That touches every product, you absolute dumbass. People think it's no more Chinese food or whatever but like they don't understand that there are raw materials that are necessary for American production that are being manufactured or are coming in from these countries. Lumber, for example. Oh my God.
Because we will only be applying tariffs to foreign products. Look, Aaron, I recognize you probably have no idea how tariffs work. So let me tell you how this is going to happen. We're going to put tariffs on the foreign products that Walmart brings in, which will raise the cost of the foreign products and allow the American companies to compete with them to actually be able to compete on price, thereby incentivizing people to buy American, which would lead to that American company being able to lower their prices because they're finally getting volume. Therefore, what you have is foreign products, which are...
Oh, that's how it's going to work. Oh, American manufacturing is going to become cheaper. I didn't realize that that's how it was going to work. famously, when there is a stable amount of demand, but the supply all of a sudden is wiped out in half, what ends up happening is, famously, companies actually lower their prices and not increase their prices. They only increase their prices when Joe Biden is president. Anyway, the primary people who will benefit from the tariffs are real estate investors, which is Trump's primary thing. So no, the people that will benefit from Trump's tariffs regime is going to be people that are simply going to be a way for Donald Trump to win favors with key industry leaders, to just like bring them. This is something that happens in other countries, not so much in America, because like America is so capitalist that there's not like a need to rock the boat too much and like offer too much power to like to an administration. But like in Turkey, the incoming administration brings their own wealthy class with them, and it's a line of defense. That's what Erdogan did. He brought forth directly his family members and also people that were invested in his continued leadership, and he made them incredibly wealthy. This is a part of how kleptocracies work. Vladimir Putin did this in Russia, and Erdogan did this in Turkey. I think that this is what Donald Trump is trying to do.
Before we get into tariffs,
not to get all libbed up on this, but like I think this is basically what Trump is going to try to do. He's going to be like, listen, you're a billionaire, you own a newspaper, right? Yeltsin did it, not Putin. Okay, I'm just saying like Putin utilized the existing structure of the oligarchs to his advantage in the same way. I think that is what Trump is going to try. And it's actually a little bit unique to the regular order of business in America, because corporations run the country rather than the country runs the government runs the corporations. And I think Trump will basically implement a tariffs regime on those he has declared enemies of his administration in an effort to centralize power even further. And you know, this is a fantastic approach to moving towards more and more authoritarian mechanisms of control.
The heart of the Donald Trump economic plan.
We should talk about
The chicken war is a clucking good story.
in post-World War II West Germany, people started eating a lot of chicken. Specifically, American chicken. Midway through 1962, U.S. farmers were on track to sell more than $50 million worth, $500 million in today's money. This made European farmers mad, so the organization that later became the European Union put a 5-pound chicken that started as $1.60 became $2.25. Imports quickly dropped. U.S. chicken farmers and politicians were furious.
And we thought Germany's our big market for chicken, and so if we hurt the Germans, maybe we'll get them to change their mind on chicken.
So the U.S. put a 25% tariff on trucks, like Germany's Volkswagen. And it worked. Their truck sales in the U.S.
It's interesting that Wall Street Journal, a right-wing publisher, goes ahead on tariffs. Brother, tariffs were the first reason why Carl Icahn left the Trump administration last time when he implemented tariffs on steel. Carl Icahn was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're like ruining key sectors of the economy. And he did. He truly disrupted a lot of different parts of the American economy this way. So yeah, there's a reason why Wall Street Journal and damn near every economist is going to be aggro on this. The only problem is, in this process, like, I'm not even anti-tariff in general. I am simply anti-tariff when it comes to just unconditional across-the-board tariffs with no acceptable domestic manufacturing substitute. That's why you're not going to get liberal institutions that are still, you know, right-wing conservative, but like pro-capitalist, to be on board with tariffs in general.
Fell by half, and they never really recovered. Meanwhile, Germans paid more for their chicken, and Americans had fewer truck options.
Like, one of the things that I'm incredibly annoyed by with like Toyota Hilux tariffs, for example, like the Japanese car manufacturing industry, I hate that there is no acceptable small substitute, like small truck with the same cab size substitute in America. Then it's a lose-lose for everybody, right? Like, I understand the importance of American manufacturing. I really do, especially when it comes to vehicle manufacturing. The issue, on the other hand, is that due to CAFE standards, like all of our domestic car manufacturers have realized that, you know, you can have these behemoth vehicles that are larger and larger, that are basically child mutilators, and there is no end in sight. There's no change in that. Not to change the subject, but people are very upset for you not getting in the tub at your goal weight of 225. I don't know what you're talking about. No one is upset.
It's kind of a perfect example of what tariffs do. Hurt consumers while protecting very specific industries, or attempt to get countries to change their behavior. While they haven't been a large part of trade policy in decades, former President Donald Trump wants to change that.
Some might say it's economic nationalism. I call it common sense. I call it America First.
President Trump has really sort of brought a lot of people out to think that tariffs might be something that's useful in America's economic arsenal in a way that hasn't been used in the past.
Here's how tariffs work and what Trump's proposals would do. Let's start in 2018, when President Trump put tariffs on
washing machines. We're going to benefit our consumers, and we're going to create a lot of jobs.
Since then, whenever a washing machine is imported to the U.S., the company on the U.S. side doing the importing pays a tariff to the U.S. government.
Their margins are pretty low. They've got to pass that price on to consumers who ultimately pay it. That's the whole point, in some sense, to reduce demand for those goods and create space for domestic producers.
After the tariffs, not only did the price of imported washing machines go up, so did the ones made in the U.S.
There's this myth out there that if we
Wait a minute. What are you saying?
tax imports, domestic producers won't change their prices. And that's not the case. You're creating more demand for them.
So naturally, the price goes up. And it wasn't just washers. Dryers went up in price too, even though they weren't part of the tariffs.
Usually it's the case, if you buy a washer, you buy a dryer. So even though dryers weren't directly affected by the tariff.
What? It seems like corporations, no matter whatever the restrictions are, will always increase prices. Man, what?
They're indirectly affected by.
Now, it wasn't all bad. These tariffs did
create a lot of jobs.
About 1,800, mostly from those foreign companies like Samsung and LG opening plants in the U.S. And a study found the U.S. collected $82 million annually. But because of those price increases, it cost consumers $1.5 billion more. So they basically paid $815,000 per job.
Nah, that sounds sick. Aren't you a socialist? This should be good. Oh my God. Brother, there's problems here with this argument that even Wall Street Journal recognizes, and I'm shocked that you don't, which is there needs to be, one, a competitive domestic manufacturing capability, and two, a restriction on increasing prices in order to make up for the additional costs that now importers are carrying on to the consumer. If those two things don't happen, then your tariffs just operate as a sales tax, a flat sales tax. Tariffs equals socialism. Trump isn't doing economic protectionism. So nationalization is the best thing to do. I mean, I didn't even say that, but I do believe that. Yes, I think that nationalization would be significantly better for a lot of sectors. Yes.
Very expensive.
Starting with our energy extraction industry, for sure.
Expensive job creation program. And so that's another reason why economists don't like tariffs. They're much more cost-effective, more efficient ways of increasing employment in those industries.
These weren't the only tariffs Trump created in 2018. The big ones were on
steel and aluminum.
Those are really designed to...
Costs will always be passed on. Prices will not be reduced when import competitors are figuratively eliminated from the marketplace. Why would a company offer a cheaper price when they own the market? Yeah, no, I know that. That's why I'm saying without actual price restrictions implemented by the federal government in any capacity, all this will do is raise prices regardless, especially if you're doing broad sweeping tariffs. Like this is just one good. It's one good being imported. And even then it still has this kind of impact.
Punish China for its transgressions of international trade rules.
Also for national security. They're used to make a lot of military equipment, but also everyday things like cars.
All the industries that use steel and have to pay the higher price, that squeezes their profit. And it also puts them at a competitive disadvantage against foreign producers of those same goods who don't have to pay those inflated costs for their inputs. And so a lot of studies have shown that you lose jobs, as many, if not more jobs, in those downstream industries as you gain in the upstream industries that are being protected by the tariffs.
Many studies on the 2018 tariffs found some pros, some cons. Manufacturing jobs, which were on the decline, didn't increase, but they did level out. The overall economy lost jobs, mostly in those downstream industries, and the costs of the tariffs were passed on to U.S. companies and consumers. So, not great for the economy, but it did motivate you.
I imagine you'll still live comfortably even if the prices come up. Yeah, except it doesn't matter because I'm not a selfish asshole. Do you not understand? Literally every single thing that I advocate for does not impact me. I'm not a trans person, but I advocate for trans rights, okay? I'm not an undocumented immigrant, but I believe that we have to have a more just and equitable process for people that are migrating into the country. I have the capacity to not only have empathy, but beyond that, even in a self-serving manner, understand that if we actually fix some of these underlying material inequalities, then America will thrive. Okay? Then America can lead, America can match its potential as the wealthiest nation on the planet. That's it. That's the whole point.
U.S. companies to move out of China and made supply chains more resilient. But it didn't change much of China's behavior, and in many ways, they became more aggressive. But here's the thing. Even with all the economic downsides, a review by the Biden administration suggested Trump's tariffs should remain, and the administration should add or increase them, which they did.
Once tariffs get in place, there are two factors that sort of keep them in place for some time. First of all, there are going to be domestic interest groups that have a stake in seeing those tariffs maintained because they like the extra market share that they've gained as a result of those tariffs.
Of all trade, 45 to be exact. China, Canada, and Mexico make up 45% of all trade in the United States. But can't tariffs also weaken international rivals if America trades with its allies instead of the same stuff, even without domestic manufacturing? Dude, this is literally to cut off your nose to spite your face, okay? You're just describing that as a successful policy. You're also talking about Canada and Mexico as international rivals. These are two of America's most important trade partners. What are you saying? Do you hear the words that are coming out of your mouth? You just typed into the abyss and hit enter without thinking?
The policy that will save our country.
He's proposing a 60% tariff on everything from China and a 10 or even 20% on every import from every other country.
Countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
Multiple independent studies looked at the possible.
Yeah, he means like, dude, I'm only listening to JD Pandon. When he says this, I'm thinking about it as like retaliatory. He's saying that the countries will finally pay us back for all the war and the death and the destruction and the unequal exchange that we have implemented as we have relegated the global south into servile status, as we have routinely kept them down. They are coming back and they will destroy our treats economy. That's what he's saying. I swear, he's like, they're going to pay us all back. Do you think this is just a way of disingenuously introducing a massively regressive tax? Yes, I do think that. And I also think that he will utilize this. I don't think he's doing this across the board anyway. He's claiming to do it across the board. I'd be shocked if he did it. I think he's doing it to bring American corporate owners, like industry leaders, to come and kiss the ring, I think.
Effects. One found it would cost the average American household $1,700 from higher prices. Another found it could cost more than 684,000 jobs. And they don't factor in how domestic goods might get more expensive, or retaliatory tariffs from other countries.
They're not going to take this lying down. They're not going to change their behavior in some way to appease the administration that imposes such tariffs.
The dutiable tariff rate peak of 1932 is 59.1%, second only to the 61.7% rate of 1830. Okay, so the last time was 100 years ago, where we did not have the same logistical international supply chains that we now desperately rely on. That's crazy. Yeah. Another key problem there, of course, is this is totally nutty.
They're going to retaliate. So not only will U.S. imports shrink, but U.S. exports will shrink as well.
Trump wants to use these tariffs as a revenue stream for the U.S. to pay for tax cuts.
As tariffs on foreign countries go up, taxes on American workers and families come down.
Studies found his proposal would likely bring in around $250 billion per year, about 5% of what the federal government currently brings in with taxes. So if tariffs are harmful, always harmful even to the economy, why is Trump so focused on them? In the last 20 years, China
The answer is because he's a psycho. Okay, let's
has
see.
gotten aggressive, investing in manufacturing to become the world's largest exporter. Even today, they invest more than any other country. It has let them export things like steel and aluminum at below market values. That, coupled with numerous trade rule violations.
It's funny to say this as in an ominous way. China's become the industrial powerhouse of the world, but it's unfair and bad. Wow, it turns out centralized planning is impossible to compete against. And the American centralized planning that has no long-term goals in mind and is basically just a money faucet for corporations that will give nothing back to the American public in return is probably not a very good idea. You cannot compete with a nation state that has 10-year, 20-year, 30-year plans set in motion and has the power to execute them because, and I repeat this all the time, America, the American government, works at the behest of corporations. In China, the corporations work at the behest of the government.
Allowed President Trump to really restart the whole discussion about using tariffs to achieve certain objectives, such as punishing other countries, and the Biden administration has just continued that. So the whole environment has...
Like, we have always tried to positively incentivize our producers by utilizing subsidies, okay, to keep prices in order. That is the maximum amount of centralization that happens in America. Corporations, on the other hand, can just take those subsidies and reframe it in a way that it still benefits shareholder value rather than the actual stakeholders, such as the workers that work at these corporations. And we demand nothing in return. Like, the American government demands nothing in return. They can do buybacks. They can do whatever they want. We've deregulated every aspect of the American economy. And then we're just like, oh, this is shocking. Why aren't things working in the way that we want them to? China doesn't operate that way. This is how complex manufacturing even a bottle of root beer is. Ingredients: molasses from the United States, anise from Spain, licorice from France, vanilla bourbon from Madagascar, cinnamon from Sri Lanka, cloves from Indonesia, wintergreen from China, pimento berry oil from Jamaican balsam oil from Peru. Now imagine a computer or a F-150 pickup truck. Yep. Most parts of it are also, the raw materials are coming from all around the planet. Most parts are assembled in Mexico and then assembled once again in the United States of America. But like, so many of the key components are coming from China. What do?
Has really changed from...
Yeah. If you act as China is a good example to follow. Actually, true though, China steals our military equipment, bro. First of all, I'm not saying that. You know who's saying that? This graph. You know who's saying that? The Wall Street Journal, okay? It's not me saying it. Like, I'm just simply repeating facts. They might not favor what you want the world to be. Okay, why did I just open Insta to your balls? First of all, it wasn't my balls, it was my shaft, okay? And secondly, that wasn't supposed to be the photo was to show gains, not the meat gains that I've made over the years, but instead the gains I've made over the years on my body fat percentage and musculature. Nice shaft, dude. Thanks. This is skewed, though. The main reason is that they lump all potential companies as state-owned in China. This is quite expansive as a definition. This is used all the time to say China isn't being fair. I'm an economist studying China for what it's worth. Yeah, of course it's not fair. Their products are too good and their price points are too low. Every instance of trade war and foreign policy revolving around China from the Western world is literally, how did we let it get this way? How do we allow China to become the bad bitch? This is up. We must do something about it. You understand? That's literally all of the conversation. Everyone constantly goes, dude, what the we thought we could use them as slave labor in perpetuity. We didn't realize that our capital owners moving manufacturing to China was going to end up devastating our countries. That's what it is. We didn't realize that they wouldn't operate like India, for example. That we didn't realize that they would actually have a longer term plan in mind with the way that they used foreign capital to engage in even development. This was unacceptable. We thought this entire time that we could just keep using and abusing the Chinese labor force. People always talk about how, the Chinese manufacturing is stealing our IP. It's like, brother, you think that the companies didn't know that? Never be able to make competitive products. That was the idea. Once they actually started making competitive products and even better products, actually, they went, oh my God, what the f going on? Oh, we can't do anything about it because we're too reliant on Chinese manufacturing. 1 second, you're talking about Chinese industrial central planning policy. And the next, you're talking about your cock and balls. I love this stream. Yeah. Joint venture tech transfer, 100% voluntary. The only involuntary part of that is that, like, China is now a superpower. And America and the Western world hates that. That's the problem. Thanks. You want the... Yeah. I wonder why people don't use this as an example of central planning beating free markets. What do you mean? They don't want to use that because they're capitalists. No one would want this. None of the powerful entities that control the Western governments would ever allow this to happen. This would mean we have to just... we have to turn into a non-capitalist country, or at least one that is dictated by governments instead. According to a study by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, China has taken a leading position in 37 out of the 44 critical and emerging technology areas. These areas include defense, space, robotics, energy, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, advanced materials, and quantum technology.
Values. That, coupled with numerous trade rule violations,
allowed President Trump to really restart the whole discussion about using tariffs to achieve certain objectives, such as punishing other countries, and the Biden administration has just continued that. So the whole environment has really changed from 20 years ago, when trade policy was pretty quiet business, and now we're talking about industrial policy, tariffs, subsidies, and all these different interventions.
What do you think capitals will do if China's only going to continue to dominate? They're doing it already. It's called fascism. Okay, that's what they're going to do. That's it.
Interventions, because the whole global and geopolitical environment has changed quite dramatically.
And it would change even more dramatically with Trump's proposed tariff plan. In the short run, we know the economy will suffer. In the long,
I think one of the best examples you can use in your immediate life is TikTok. China comes in and makes this insane product that is insanely addictive. But once it reaches mass consumption and everybody loves it and everyone's addicted to it, it becomes more politically consequential to ban it. Okay, America's like, oh, I like this product. You should be forced to divest from this product that is very successful. You should sell this to an American capitalist instead. Okay, that's it. And China's like, no, I'm not going to do that. America's a tiny part of the, TikTok marketplace. It's fine. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're just going to lobby the American government in the same way that any other corporation does. And we're going to activate all the people that love TikTok to go and call their congresspersons. Once you got a sweet taste of that liquid crack of that internet, it's too hard. It's too hard to take it away.
No one really knows. Will it be a war between the US and the rest of the world, or the Western world against China? Trump wants to play a game of chicken to find out.
No, Hasan, stop spreading fake propaganda. China's dirt poor, I swear. We're a third world country. We're all eating rats like North Koreans, I promise. Yeah. EU to demand technology transfers from Chinese companies. Huawei's Mate 70 now doesn't use American technology and is as good, if not better than Apple. This didn't have to happen. Trump and Biden gave up America's technology power and led by stupidly sanctioning Huawei in China. What did they expect? That China would roll over like Japan did in the 80s? We've had generations of arrogant, myopic, and stupid people running DC. Trump and Biden for shot into own goal. China for 3 from half court. This is why, God forbid, you say anything like even remotely normal about China. Okay? People get very mad. Oh, speaking of which, by the way, BDS works. Puma no longer sponsors the Israel Football Association. In a highly unusual move in December 2023, Puma leaked news to the Financial Times that it would not be renewing its contract with the IFA, set to expire at the end of December 2024. Kit providers don't announce that they won't be renewing a contract, let alone a year in advance. Puma was no longer able to sustain the growing pressure and wanted out, clearly illustrating the impact of the campaign to boycott Puma. We thank the many groups around the world that work tirelessly and relentlessly to force Puma to end its complicity with Israel's apartheid regime and its Gaza genocide. Yeah, I'm headed to Huawei Mate's 70 launch event in Shenzhen. Yes, Shenzhen Metro has business class. This phone chip, this OS event is a really big deal for Chinese tech and has big implications for U.S.-China relations. In May 2019, the U.S. Department of Commerce added Huawei and its affiliates to the Entity List, which restricts U.S. companies and allies from exporting tech to Huawei. They expected this to cripple Huawei because it wouldn't be able to acquire any semiconductors made with. The U.S. government assumed that by restricting Huawei's access to cutting-edge semiconductor manufacturing equipment, particularly extreme ultraviolet lithography machines from ASML, the company would be unable to produce cutting-edge chips at the process nodes smaller than 10 nm. EUV lithography is crucial for efficiently manufacturing chips at 7 nm and below, utilizing light with a wavelength of 13. I don't know what any of this means. It's nanometers, right? They're saying that you can't just make these tiny ass chips. Then on the morning of August 30th, Huawei quietly dropped the new flagship phone, the 60 Pro. No product release event, no specs, nothing. At first, no one even knew if the phone had 5G because of all the US sanctions that cut Huawei off from advanced tech. A friend of that morning showed up in the lobby of my office with a new phone. We call it 4.99G, he said with a wink. We speed tested it at the 5G phones in our office and it beat all of them. Huawei wasn't supposed to have a 5G chip. The timing of the drop was significant. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo was in China that morning. The tech world waited a few days for the first teardowns to see what was inside. It caught everyone off guard, especially the U.S., because they thought Huawei couldn't even get close to this without the EUV tech. It turned out that Huawei had secretly been pouring tons of R&D for years into designing domestic chips. The chips performance showed to Huawei and SMIC had overcome the technical limitations previously thought insurmountable with older DUV tech. The only remaining thread tying Huawei's phone to Western technology was that it ran on Android. That changes today. I don't know why Americans just close their eyes and plug their ears to what is happening. Huawei's based their 5G tech on a scientific paper by Turkish scientist Erdal Atakan. Nice. This is the same principle behind the sanctions regime. If you sanction every country, for example, then you're not sanctioning anybody else. You're just sanctioning yourself. America has consistently, in their endless hubris, dominated the entire planet thinking that the rest of the world would never catch up, that they would be consistently servile to the interests and the needs of the American marketplace. The reality of the matter is, this is why the One Belt, One Road initiative was so devastating. China wanted to develop Africa not exclusively because they wanted to extract raw minerals and rare earth metals and whatnot in a more efficient capacity. They also wanted to create a second market that would consume the products that they're developing, knowing full well that inevitably America will close off the consumption faucet, even if it hurts themselves in the process. It's not because like China wants to uplift the global south or whatever, and they're socialist or anything like that. They just wanted new customers. That's what's going on. These are the types of things you can do if you control the entire economy, and that you are able to do whatever the f you want. Trump is facing a losing tariff war with China 2 weeks ago.
Donald Trump has been elected President of the United States.
Donald Trump's first presidency gave...
And also have no respect for human rights, so no limitations. Yeah, that's okay. The idea that like it's an exclusively Chinese thing to not have any respect for human rights is hilarious, when we are living in the United States of America and our Supreme Court recently ruled that American manufacturers on the global stage could utilize child slave labor, okay, as long as it's relegated to third-party subcontractors. It's ridiculous. No, everybody has no respect for human rights, China included, okay? And in terms of numbers on the board, America is, historically speaking, far worse. So, and still continues to do insanely awful. We love talking. I mean, this is the same dynamic. We love talking about like mismanagement and famine due to genuinely devastating consequences that people in positions of power have implemented in like transitional socialist states, okay? And we're like, oh, communism killed 7 quintillion, okay, 20 gorillion, omega billion people. And then we just look at the global capitalist marketplace where there is an abundance of food. There's a surplus of food. We throw food out. Curing famine at the global level is simply a logistical problem. It's simply a problem born out of capitalism. And yet we do not contend with those deaths as deaths caused by capitalism. 14 million a year due to famine every year. But that's because people have not picked themselves up by their fucking bootstraps. Prior transitional socialist states have implemented and have caused widespread famine and massive amounts of deaths. This is true. But in this day and age, that is no longer a problem. And yet, while we have the capacity to feed everyone, the profit motive makes it so that we do not do that. I say one is more evil on its face than the other, if you want to use good-bad dynamics.
Washington a playbook of hardline tactics for preventing China from overtaking the U.S. as the world's dominant economic and technological power.
Trump introduced punitive tariffs on China, as well as trying to rebalance the trade deficit to try and contain China's economic rise, as well as trying to contain its military might.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff.
Trump is focused on raising tariffs to prevent China from shipping many of their goods into the United States that perhaps are subsidized by the government.
And his campaign for re-election left no doubt that his ambition for American supremacy was still his North Star.
We will hire American, buy American, build American, grow American, and show the whole world that the American dream is back.
But after 4 years out of the Oval Office, Trump is returning to face an emboldened, savvier China, and one the U.S. may already be losing its battle to contain. Tackling that is likely to be one of Trump's primary plot lines in the sequel to his first 4-year showdown with China.
Thank you very much.
Let's rewind for a sec. When China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, it marked a new era in global economics. Lower trade barriers allowed China to ship cheap toys, t-shirts, and TVs around the globe, and an export bonanza that helped lift hundreds of millions of Chinese into the middle class. Then around here, 2 pivotal events occurred.
I am officially running for President of the United States.
And that same year, China officially revealed a 10-year plan to upgrade its thriving export economy with cutting-edge innovations.
Made in China 2025 is essentially President Xi Jinping's vision to secure China's place in the world as a preeminent global technological leader. At its heart, it's really about ensuring that China's national security goals are at the heart of its policy making.
It's the kind of grand ambition that would galvanize successive U.S. presidents into taking action.
This is number one, but this is the first of many.
The U.S. efforts to contain China's growth began with tariffs and some of the trade policies in the Trump administration.
Basically, they sought to make it more expensive for Chinese companies to sell to the U.S. and consequently redress a massive trade deficit, the imbalance that occurs when a nation imports more from a country than it exports to it.
President Biden is holding back on a decision to scrap any Trump-era tariffs on China imports.
You can see this has had an impact. In 2023, the deficit shrank to the smallest total since 2010, reflecting a decline in imports shipped from China. But globally, China's productive prowess is at historic heights. Its manufactured goods trade surplus is the largest relative to global GDP of any country since the US right after World War II. Trump also introduced policies to control high-tech exports from US manufacturers, as well as those of some allied economies, which were tightened by the Biden administration.
So that essentially makes it impossible or much harder to transfer US goods or US technologies into China.
The US government stopped Huawei from being able to sell much of its telecom equipment into the United States, and then it went even a step further. It went to many of its allies around the world and tried to persuade them also to not let Huawei sell its equipment into their countries. That caused all sorts of problems for them. In 2022, they constrained China's ability to get the most advanced semiconductors out there, including AI chips that would be used to train models like ChatGPT. They also constrained the country's ability to get chip-making equipment, including the machines that make the most advanced
Yeah, they literally went to the Netherlands, were like, you cannot work with fucking China.
chips that drive smartphones and also AI and quantum computing.
Massive appliances like these extreme ultraviolet lithography machines developed by Dutch company ASML. The constraints are also intended to hinder China's tech giants from developing anything that could threaten America's military superiority, a concern long intertwined with Washington's economic strategy.
In terms of semiconductors and these really sensitive technologies, China is still lagging behind the US. So we have seen some efficacy there.
But the data shows US-led export controls had an unintended side effect. They forced China to become more self-reliant and invest in its own science.
Yeah, unintended side effect? No shit, dude. Wait a minute. Why won't these guys just stop developing? What? Why won't they stop developing? I don't understand. Please? Stop, please. Excuse me. It would be nice if you stopped developing, please. Self-reliance is the best fucking policy. That's why Jusha will thrive one day, okay? Terrorism propaganda, I know. Don't worry. In the upcoming administration, Trump will make it illegal to even think about repairing your John Deere tractors, okay? They will come to your house and kill you with autonomous robots if you even dare to think about fixing your own fucking hardware. That right there is innovation, okay? If you even say, hey man, why are we giving $20 quintillion to Israel this cycle? Can I please get some healthcare? They will come to your house and they will kill you, okay? They will put you in the work camp that Thomas Homan, the human thumb, is the administrator of. That's real freedom, baby. Dare to dream. America first. We will make sure that you all say you love Israel and that they can do whatever they want and you love America. It will be illegal to basically turn around and say, like, maybe we shouldn't bomb Mexico. They're a valuable trade partner. No, you're going to prison. Something funny about consumer rights and corporations in China compared to the US is that when consumers have complaints in China, it's taken extremely seriously, like with Tesla. And in America, the companies lobby the FTC to make sure you can't click one button to cancel the predatory monthly subscription draining from your bank account. They will come to your house and kill you if you even say that that's bad, that you shouldn't be able to, that you should be able to click to cancel your subscriptions. You will go to jail. We have a solution to that problem. It's called Another App. Here, purchase them with a $10 a month subscription. We will have this new surveillance technology that has access to all your passwords. Go in and cancel these subscriptions for you. How about that? That's called innovation, baby. That's called freedom. With a $500 per year subscription, you can give us your information and we will remove the virus we put on your computer. Yeah. It's cool, man. I don't know what you guys are complaining about. It's the best. America number 1, okay? China not even number 2, okay? China maybe like number 5. Oh, that's amazing. Can we please talk about the conservatime mind for a second? What? This kid disappeared off the face of the planet after shooting Donald Trump? That's what happens when people die. Anyway, Made in China 2025, an industrial policy plan announced by Xi Jinping in 2015 has largely been a success. China has achieved global leadership position in 5 key technology categories and is catching fast in many others. It's also really annoying because they're doing that shit over there. This is what we're fucking predisposed with.
We'll do it. We'll do it for them. But you can stay. You can not help, but don't impede us, and do not knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE, because that is a felony. And we got one hell of an attorney general coming in, Pam Bondi. I think she'll read that statute the same way I do it. I'm not a lawyer, but I can read, and we're going to have consequences for people who violate the law and try to prevent us from doing our job.
I do love Tom Homan because like he is melting in real time, okay? He is the perfect definition of like a non-human. Like he is straightforwardly fucking melting in front of our eyes. He's like, fuck slurs. I can read, I promise you, Laura. A homunculus, yes. It's amazing. Yeah, he did this live. Yeah. He said, if you knowingly shelter an undocumented immigrant, we got our best guys for the job. They will find them. They will find the undocumented migrants and they will make you suffer the consequences too. Yeah, we'll sniff them out. I'm going to tweet that. This is a good tweet. Let me tweet. Do people get the reference? What, from an incredibly famous movie? I think people will understand the reference. That's a bing. Yeah. Anyway, this is, I get the reference just by what he's wearing. Yeah, you can pretty much figure out what's going on here, you know? Oh no, that's anti-Semitic, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, making a direct comparison to a famous representation of a fucking Nazi who hunted Jewish people is actually really anti-Semitic. Yeah, it's only after the 6 millionth migrant that is killed in one of the concentration work camps because the American government decided it's actually infinitely cheaper to just start melting the undocumented migrants that are not completely enslaved at gunpoint. Only then can you make this comparison. There's no other reason to make this comparison. There's no reason to learn about history, as a matter of fact, because why could you learn? If you learn about history, then you start noticing the very clear similarities between, you know, former bad countries and this current country that I am conditioned into thinking is a good country. Anyway, let's get back to China.
Scientists and researchers.
They've been very aggressive in applying for patents that they think are going to help them develop domestic industries that are critical to their future.
When President Xi Jinping makes something a priority in China, he can point to banks to provide cheap financing, he can point to state-owned enterprises to throw their full weight behind backing.
Like, what do people think? Dude, what the fuck do people think like Nazi Germany's argument was? They did. Like, we're running the same cycle. It wasn't like they woke up one day and were like, yes, we are evil. Yeah. We love doing evil. We know we are evil and we love doing it. It's our favorite thing is to be evil. That is why we're doing it. Like, no, people were fed a healthy diet of propaganda leading up to this moment. Okay. That's what the Germans said. Mein Lolli. Which is why whenever I show like translated Hitler speeches is like identical to like current American and current Israeli speeches from key figures in both of these governments, you know?
In that certain sector or industry.
For instance, backers of companies like Shanghai Microelectronics Equipment considered China's best bet for competing with ASML's advanced lithography machines.
At this point, I think everybody believes that they're many years away from being able to match ASML at the pinnacle of the industry, but they're pouring billions and billions of dollars into this effort, and they're very determined to be able to close the gap as much as they possibly can.
Evidence that China's semiconductor ecosystem was expanding emerged in 2023 when Huawei released the Mate 60, or more precisely, when Bloomberg News commissioned a research firm to take one apart.
Inside that phone was a semiconductor.
China was 4 to 5 years behind the US, but the cross-application is what really worries DC, that if we can do this with a consumer product like a phone, it's just as easy to do this with much more sensitive technology that's used for military applications. In other areas, China really has charged ahead to...
Take a look at this chart. You can see China's market share of many high-tech exports growing, particularly EVs, despite US tariffs and restrictions on access to technology.
Ultimately, there is this idea that trade always gets through. And that's sort of what we see when we think about the EV industry in China. So, for example, a big automaker like BYD is already getting around some of these potential restrictions by building factories in places like Thailand, in Hungary, and in Brazil.
Trump wants to further limit imports of Chinese EVs and batteries, and in his second term may try to fulfill a popular campaign pledge.
You ain't never getting a BYD car. The only time you get in a BYD car is if you go to Mexico or if you go to Canada and ride the bus, okay? That's it. If you are living in the United States of America, you are not getting a BYD car anytime soon. Not today, not tomorrow, not yesterday. I'm sorry, sucks to suck. It ain't happening, okay?
100%, 1,000%.
They're not going to sell one car into
I mean, I wanted to, but like
the United States.
The concern in
No, Canada doesn't have BYD either. No, they do. They have it for bus fleets, I'm pretty sure. That's why I said they only have it. Yeah, unless you're fucking Ford CEO Jim Farley, which I think some of that is fake. I don't think he like only drives a BYD car exclusively, but I think he did go to China and saw BYD and was like, "Holy fuck, we're cooked."
in Washington is that the electric
Soon, BYD also coming to Turkey as well, by the way.
vehicles and some of
And yeah, it's not a BYD. He owns a Xiaomi car, the Ford CEO.
the software behind them would be
And no, you can't get a BYD car. You can't. It's not just the tariffs. They're not street legal, I'm pretty sure, in America. You can buy them in Mexico, though.
be able to collect personal information and perhaps share it with the Chinese government or at least with the companies that are involved in making those vehicles.
It's the kind of rhetoric Beijing has vehemently rejected.
China will continue to firmly safeguard legitimate rights and interests of its enterprises, and we resolutely support the Chinese companies in maintaining their rights in accordance with the law.
So, have two U.S. administrations hindered China in ways Trump initially intended? It doesn't appear so.
The vast majority of Made in China 2025 targets that Bloomberg tracks actually have been achieved or are on track to be achieved.
Tariffs have helped cut America's trade deficit with its rival. But, as we saw earlier, they haven't prevented China from boosting exports elsewhere. And while the U.S. may have slowed Beijing's progress in some areas, like advanced chip making, overall, Xi Jinping's industrial policies are successfully advancing China's tech.
I don't understand. When I look at like economy broadcasters, they have a very different take on what's going on in China and the Chinese economy than all of my favorite YouTube channels that keep telling me that China is on the verge of collapse yesterday. Why is it that Foreign Policy magazine or Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal has a noticeably different approach to what is happening with the Chinese economy and Chinese global dominance, as a matter of fact, than every one of my favorite fucking YouTubers that have millions and millions of views? I don't get it.
Technological capabilities. But even if the U.S. hasn't managed to trip China yet, nobody expects a second Trump administration to stop trying.
If you look at the geopolitics.
Doesn't not letting Chinese EVs into the U.S. harm consumers? Yes, but it doesn't even fucking matter. As long as we have a competitive EV industry, I don't even care, okay? Yes, I like Chinese EVs. I wish I could get one. But the reality of the matter is, as long as we had like good competitive domestic manufacturing, I would be happy, especially if the fucking laborers were paid well. The problem is we don't get that and we don't get the Chinese EVs. It sucks. We have fucking Tesla. It sucks dick. As far as I understand, people didn't even express interest in the Ford F-150, which I'm thinking about getting. The Lightning. Marat really, really wants me to get the F-150 Lightning. I want the F-100 Illuminator, and I want it bad. I want the Illuminator. I want the fucking F-100 Concept, the EV one, and I will give Jim Farley the good suck. Please don't buy the huge kid killer. It's cool. Some kids have bad vibes. You know what I'm talking about. The F-100, I've shown you this before many times over. The problem is it's a concept. They only sell the battery package, which is like fucking $400,000 or some shit. Look at how beautiful this is. It is everything that I want. The only problem is it's a 2-seater. Sorry, a 3-seater. Find a good custom shop. You'll pay dearly for it, but they'll build it. If I was going to get a fucking custom EV, I would probably get a Bronco. They have Bronco Resto mods with EV packages already. It's not even a problem. And they're probably a little bit more reliable. What? Respectfully, that's one of the ugliest vehicles I've ever seen. You guys are so insane. They're saying, okay, chat is conflicted on this. Okay, look at this.
Enjoying a rainy day with an inflatable blow-up bed in your car.
I will say that the Chinese EVs and Chinese cars in general do have a lot of bloat. Like, I don't really give a fuck about a lot of the amenities. They max out some of the craziest shit.
In a random florist or someone's garden by the look of it. It's nice though. Open all sunshades. 2 of them. Take my money.
No, I'm not doing car content.
So you can take the headrest off. Well, I think a lot of cars can do that. Oh, hold up. Oh, well, this just got a little bit saucy. What are we doing that for then? That looks like a very convenient angle. A little T. Oh, haha. What we laughing at? So that inflatable bed, does that come with the car? And then you can blind all the window. Oh my God, I'd have the best nap of my life. Little bit of Netflix on if you've got a screen in the car. Oh, I can see one. Tesla, eat your heart out. I'd love a Tesla, I'll be honest. Open the rear entertainment for... There's another screen. Take my money. And what they watch anime.
Imagine the back shots. Jesus Christ.
Well, but you know what? If I'm gonna leave this world, I wouldn't mind it being in this position with a dog.
Yeah, I know. It's stupid. I'm not crazy for all the extra shit that the Chinese cars have.
Landscape, I think it's clear that the United States will continue to apply pressure on their ally for more restriction.
How this sequel to Trump's first confrontation with China will play out is yet to be written. But if you listen to Trump, it's clear that keeping America on top is his ultimate goal.
We can do things that nobody else can do. China doesn't have what we have. Nobody has what we have.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, but this guy knows what's up.
Is foreign products, which are going to be significantly more expensive. And you have American products where the company is able to lower their price because they're able to sell in volume. But yeah, if you want to continue to buy foreign, shit's going to be more expensive. But if you're willing to buy the American product,
the fuck are you gonna do? I know. Murat says you actually can do that. I know. We're planning on doing that, by the way, chat. Oh yeah, no, I know that. Are you against any form of American protectionism? No, dummy. Why would I be against American protectionism? I actually manufacture garments. Okay, I have merch. It's from ideology.shop. You can go and purchase it if you want. The price points are incredibly fucking reasonable, especially when you consider the fact that they are domestically produced in the United fucking States of America with domestic union labor shops. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you get it? How are we going to get our domestic maple supply?
which is actually employing people here in the U.S. They actually have to pay their employees a real wage with real benefits and keeping the money here in the United States economy. Yeah, you're going to get a better price if you go with the American companies. So, Aaron, I just want to point out that this is what we voted for.
Murat said he's right. American shit will be relatively lower than the foreign shit. Is just going to be more expensive than what it is today. The Porsche copycat for 41K.
Behind me is a Xiaomi SU7, and this is one of the most impressive vehicles from China.
I fucking hate this guy. He always gets to drive the sickest Chinese cars.
This makes 673 horsepower, can do 497 miles on a charge. It can go 10 to 80% in 20 minutes, and because it's all-wheel drive, the 0 to 60, 2.7 seconds. You get drilled Brembo brakes, you have sticky Michelin tires, and you get air suspension to keep you comfortable. You also get an active wing here in the back. You get a lot of space here in the front, and a lot in the back with even more under there. And inside I get this gigantic glass roof, speakers on my headrest, bucket seats that are heated and ventilated. I have a touchscreen that works super fast, 2 wireless charging pads, physical AC controls. I can adjust my wing, adjust my suspension. I get storage in here, tons of storage space under here. I have an augmented reality head-up display, a camera to make sure I don't fall asleep, and a boost mode. I also have an area to mount a GoPro, and my screen can do this. I get good space in the back, built-in cup holders. I have storage space right here, and a built-in cooler. I don't know what's more impressive, the fact that this is $41,500 US, the fact that they make an ultra version that beat a Taycan around the Nürburgring, or the fact that this is the first car this company's ever made.
Anyway, I still prefer old school looking cars with EV swaps, to be fair, to the new annoying looking cars like this. But people are about to learn the nature of the global economy. Motherfuckers about to get educated. Them anarchists gonna do them community gardens. Them anarchists gonna expand the community banana trade. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. It's like, yeah, man, this is ethical fair trade banana that I grew in my own garden. I've been fertilizing it with my own fecal matter.